Kyle North returns to break my back, but this time he's got a mission and he's got a badge. While he's been away, his enemies have been busy. What traps have they prepared for him? Find out next on The Reef, episode number 9.
Welcome to the serialized audiobook, The Reef, written by Scott Sigler and Matt Wallace. Narrated by Scott Sigler.
This is The Reef, episode number 9, with only 3 episodes left, including this one. Our traditional post-story question and answer episode is coming up. Do you have any questions or comments about The Reef? Email them to info@emptyset.com. We will read them and respond live in a bonus episode of this book. Or if you'd like to hear your own voice and hear me react to your question, record that question as an MP3. Email it to info@emptyset.com. We'll play it live and I will respond to it live. If this book, The Reef, is your first exposure to my GFL series, after the episode, I will tell you how you can get book 1, The Rookie, for free. Now here we go with episode number 9 of The Reef. Book 3, Back to Break My Back. Chapter 13, Old Haunts. Fire is a mad beast. It had eaten the brace alive. 2 walls and half the roof had collapsed. Through a hole that wasn't supposed to be there, Kai could see into the charred interior. The signature curved bar looked like a great sacrificial slab covered with soot and broken, blackened roof supports. The smell of charred wood, of scorched slate, and something else, something Kai tried to deny. The smell of burned meat. He started to walk inside, but stopped when he saw something familiar in a pile of ash. Fluff's Gothic stein. Empty and half charred, but more or less intact. Either the treated Quith carapace was fireproof, or Slough had left it there after the blaze burned out. Arson. It didn't take a genius to figure that out, or to take an educated guess as to why someone had burned the place down. Valenti's men. Because people knew Kai frequented the place, knew that Dynamite might know Kai's whereabouts. No wonder Gabriel and Tong had been on his trail so fast. They must have lured Fluff out, maybe paid him off. The later notion bothered Kai a lot more than he would have liked to admit. Maybe whoever had done this had simply waited for the heavy key to leave on his own. Maybe, but highly unlikely. Ghoulie dove out of the air, hovered next to Kai.
Man coming this way, sidearm in a holster.
Kai looked down the street. Sure enough, he saw Fat Bat, the portly town constable and Kyle's personal drunk tank valet on many occasions, walking down Main Street toward Kai. "Head back up," Kai said. "More might come." Ghoulie shot higher into the air. He was playing the lookout, making sure no one could sneak up on Marshall North. Bat waddled his way to Kai.
Hey there, Lash. You look healthier than the last time I saw you."
"Miss me?"
"A little bird told me they saw you in town. I didn't believe it, but here you are. You picked a real bad time to come back."
Kai strode toward him, boots kicking up curls of ash. He stopped in front of the shorter, fatter man, stared down at him. "What happened here?"
"You happened," Bat said. Lenny's boys were looking for you."
Confirmation. With it came guilt. This was Kai's fault. Was Dynamite still alive?
"They burned down the brace," Kai said. "You didn't do a damn thing to stop them."
Bat blinked rapidly.
"Come on now, Lash. What was I supposed to do? Everyone knows you camped out here when you wasn't tearing up the town. They put the hurt on Dynamite to find out where you were off to. The old man wouldn't talk, spat right in their faces."
For a moment, Kai couldn't process what Bat was saying. Then he remembered that Bat was a lawman in name only. He was forever in Valenti's pocket.
"You saw this happen," Kai said. "You watched and didn't do anything?"
Bat's hand drifted toward the spitter slung on his left hip. More of a nervous reaction than a go for the gun.
Well, just take it easy, Bat said. Place was going to burn down whether I got in the way or not. You know that.
That was all the admission Kai needed.
Where's dynamite, Bat? Yeah, you know I ain't got nothing to do with this, Lash. You watch the place burn,
Kai said, leaning closer, towering over the smaller man.
So you tell me where dynamite is, or you are gonna burn.
Bat's eyes widened. Kai wanted to kill him, right then and there.
You can't talk to me like that,
Bat said.
I'm the law here.
Kai reached inside the collar of his jersey, pulled out his marshal badge, let it drop down. It lay on his sternum, which was eye level for Bat. Bat stared at it.
What's that supposed to be?
A badge, Kai said.
You're not the law here anymore, Bat. I am the law. Last chance. Where's dynamite?
Bat squinted at the badge.
Reef Marshal? Well, that ain't even a real thing.
Kai's left hand grabbed Bat's neck. Bat went for his spitter. It was halfway out of the holster when Kai's right hand locked on Bat's wrist. Kai squeezed. The sheriff's wrist snapped like twigs wrapped in thick bacon. He dropped the spitter. Kai snatched it out of the air before it hit the ground. Bat tried to scream, but Kai squeezed his throat tighter.
Where's dynamite?
The sheriff's eyes bulged. His lips flapped against his teeth. The grip was so tight he couldn't open his mouth. One-handed, Kai lifted the man off his feet.
Where?
Fat Bat gurgled, pointed into the burned-out bar. A stab of dread. Still holding Bat with one hand, Kai strode into the wreck of the saloon. And there he saw his friend. Someone had driven a tall post into the ground and bound dynamite to it. The blackened blades and charred handles of several crude knives and a couple of short-handled hatchets were still stuck in his scorched body. They had used him for target practice, for amusement. Dynamite was dead, for no other reason than he had been Kai's friend. 2 steps brought Kai to the curved bar top. He lifted Bat higher, slammed him onto it, onto the charred timbers resting atop the bar. Finally, Kai relaxed his grip on the man's throat, just a little. Bat coughed, dragged in a screeching, wide-eyed breath. Kai let him take a few more. Bat held his broken wrist to his chest, trembled with fear.
Did you help do this, Bat? Did you do more than just stand by and watch? Lie to me at all, and I'll hurt you. I'll really hurt you.
Bat shook his head so hard his fat cheeks wobbled.
No, Lash, I would never. It was just, but you watched, Kai said. Because they pay you. Because Valenti pays you.
Bat nodded quickly.
There weren't nothing I could do. Don't kill me.
Kai tilted his head toward Dynamite's body.
Who did that to him? Donnie. I don't know his last name. Donnie and a warrior, a new guy. Whitall the Hanger or something like that.
Kai hadn't heard of either of them.
Where do these guys live? I don't know. What do they look like? Donnie, he's a tall guy, great hair, dresses nice. Whitall, I didn't get a good look at him. He was inside the whole time I was here. Who would know what Whitall looks like? He's a warrior,
Bat said, his words coming faster, the pitch of his voice rising higher.
They all look the same. There's maybe 15 of them in the whole town.
I want to make sure I get the right one, Kai said.
Who could describe him to me?
Bat's mouth opened and closed. He blinked a kilometer a minute. Kai pressed the barrel of Bat's spitter against the man's boot, right above the big toe.
Lash, please, don't!
Kai pulled the trigger. A release of compressed air nearly as loud as a gunpowder round. A black hole in Bat's boot. A black hole that quickly flowed red. Bat screamed.
Oh, my toe! You damn psycho! You shot off my toe!
Kai moved the barrel to Bat's other foot.
Who would know Whitall the Hanger?
Tears poured from Bat's eyes. His fat jiggled in time with his cries.
Maybe, oh, damn, this hurts. Well, maybe that guy with the stupid Schmecks.
Schmecks. The crappy piles of junk Kai had seen around town. From the Emporium. What was that man's name?
That Two Poops guy? Too loose, Bat said. That's him. The Lento was shaking him down a few days back. I heard Donnie and Watall were with him.
Kai shoved Bat off the debris-strewn table onto the debris-strewn floor, kicking up a cloud of ash.
You're done and break my back, Kai said. You got 30 minutes to get out of town.
Bat kept his broken wrist close to his chest. His good hand tried to stem the blood flowing from his boot.
Out of town? Are you crazy? I can't go anywhere like this.
Kai stepped around the table. He squatted on his heels, leaned in close. Bat flinched away, whimpering.
You don't talk to anyone, Kai said. You don't mention me at all. You do, and I will find you. I will kill you. You get your fat ass out of town, and you don't come back. A half hour from now, I see you, you die. You die ugly. But my house, Bat said, his voice a whine and a plea. My stuff. Not my problem.
Tear-filled eyes looked at Kai.
I always treated you decent, Bat said. I never whipped you nor taunted you. And that's the only reason you're still alive. You let my friend die. You have 29 minutes.
Despite the wounds, Bat showed remarkable speed and balance in waddling his way out of the ruined bar. Kai stood there for a moment, looking at the corpse of his friend, a man who had tried to help him. A man who had done nothing to deserve this. No good deed goes unpunished. Ghoulie flew in.
Lash, did you just rough up a cop? This job is going to be more fun than...
His voice trailed off, and Kai knew why. Ghoulie had just seen dynamite.
Was that man a friend of yours?
Kai nodded.
Closest thing I had to one, I guess. They killed him just to find me.
My condolences,
Ghoulie said.
You, have any other friends we should check in on?
Dahlia. Kai had been to her place, a dozen times? Secretly, using her hidden door, but more than once he'd put a hurting on people who had hurt her. If Valenti's thugs would attack Dynamite just because the old man knew Kai, they'd attack Dahlia for the same reason. He had to make sure she was safe. Kai stepped outside, picked up Fluff's stein.
Go high, he said to Ghoulie, and follow me.
Chapter 14. Rebound. Kai knocked at the hidden door. He waited. He didn't have to wait long. The door opened. Lash, Dahlia said. You shouldn't... What's going on?
Is anyone here?
She shook her head. I'm alone. He pushed her inside, gently, but with no option for her to resist. She looked at what he held in his hand. If your idea of a present is a dirty mug made out of a dead baby quiff, you don't know women very well. Ghoulie fluttered in through the open door. Dahlia looked at the hurrah, but didn't say anything. Maybe she'd seen enough strange things in her day that a hurrah in her kitchen didn't faze her.
Anything out there?
Kai asked.
Streets are mostly clear,
Ghoulie said.
No one was following you.
Kai shut the door, locked it.
Do a fly-through, make sure.
The hurrah shot out of the room. Dahlia looked offended. Didn't I just tell you the place is empty?
Can't take any chances, Kai said.
You want to tell me what the hell is going on? And why is this Ghoulie flying through my home?
Deputy Marshal Ghoulie, Kai said. He's a lawman.
Kai pulled out his badge, let her see it.
So am I.
REEF, Marshal? She looked doubtful. I didn't know there were costume stores in town. There aren't any REEF Marshals.
That's what I said at first. I was wrong.
Ghoulie fluttered back into the room.
All clear.
Dahlia let her annoyance show. Of course it's clear. I told you it's clear. Now either tell me what the hell is going on or get the hell out.
Dynamite's dead, Kai said.
Her hard expression widened with surprise, then softened. How?
They killed him, looking for me.
She put her hand on his arm. I'm sorry. I know you went there a lot. He felt flares of emotion, sadness, guilt, and rage, but he pushed them all down. Except for the rage. That he let flourish. Anyone come here looking for me, asking where I am, where I live, how to find me? Dahlia shook her head. You're sure? She frowned. I'm sorry your bartender is dead, Lash, but it's not like my IQ just dropped sharply the instant that you left. I'm pretty sure I remember people coming around here asking about you. Kai stared hard into her eyes, looking for any sign of fear, that maybe people had been here and threatened her with violence if she talked. He saw no fear. She was telling the truth. All right, he said. I need to go out and talk to some people. Ghoulie will stay here to protect you.
I will?
Ghoulie said.
How about you ask me first?
Kai shook his head. Not how this works, deputy.
Ah, orders. That cop crap.
Kai glanced at him. Just keep her safe. Maybe he takes orders, but I don't, Dolly said. My home, my choice. I want both of you out of here. Kai had work to do. Dirty work. He didn't have time for this. Not your choice this time, he said. Ghoulie stays. You stay. Dahlia crossed her arms. I am not your goddamn pet. Dynamite's dead, Kai said. They came for him because he knew me. They'll come for you next. Just do what I say, got it? She met his stare with one of her own. Dahlia wasn't the kind of woman to break easy, but Kai had no give left inside of him. All right, she said. She sighed, uncrossed her arms. I'll play along. Maybe he should have kissed her at that moment. He wasn't sure. Then the moment passed. He walked to the back door, Fluff's oversized stein in his hand. Where are you going? Ghoulie asked. I'm going to shove this, he held up the mug for Ghoulie to see, down the throat of a traitor, if that traitor's still alive. Then I'm going to the Schmeck Emporium. And then I'm going to crash the slab. Chapter 15. Emporium. Break My Back's milky white dome had turned the opaque, dark gray of night. Kai kept to the back streets as much as possible. He tried to maintain a low profile, but that wasn't easy to do for a 7-foot-tall man wearing a white jersey. This was Break My Back, though, and just the size of him made sentients avert their eyes, clear out of his way, if not outright dip into alleys and storefronts to avoid him. If he hadn't been recognized yet, he would be soon. Dahlia was safe. Dynamite was dead. Fluff was alive, at least. After leaving Dahlia's, Kai had gone to Fluff's burrow, intent on discovering the Heavy Key's involvement with Dynamite's murder. Turned out Fluff had been a coward, not a traitor. Kai had found the massive sentient curled up in a tight ball, bleeding from several places. When Donnie and Whitall came for Dynamite, they attacked Fluff first. Fluff had been too drunk to fight back. He'd run. He was far too big to stop, so Donnie and Whitall had ignored him, focused instead on Dynamite. The Heavy Key was still drunk. More so now, probably, having hit his personal stash, trying to come to grips with the fact that he'd fled the field of battle and now Dynamite was dead. Fluff was embarrassed. He was heartbroken. And he deserved every last bit of it. Kai had dropped the stein at Fluff's feet, let the smoke-smelling corpse of an infant Quith be a reminder that Fluff had fled a battle, leaving perhaps his only friend alone to face a horrible, slow death. Maybe Fluff would sober up someday. After all, Kai had. Kai did what he could to make sure that would happen. He smashed every liquor bottle he could find, then left the Heavy Key to wallow in misery. When Kai reached the Emporium, the doors were shut. The place was closed. There were a few windows, though, light coming out of them. He thought he saw at least one body moving around inside. Valenti's goons had killed Dynamite. Kai was going to get payback, no matter what it took. He stepped back, drew Fat Bat's spitter, raised one foot and push-kicked the door. He'd meant to knock it open. He blasted it clear off the frame. The door dropped like a rattling drawbridge in some ancient holo, slammed against the floor, and kicked up a thin cloud of billowing dust. A wide-eyed man stood there, frozen, next to a man-sized purple mech with an open chest, wires spilling down like freeze-frame multicolored blood. We're closed," the man said.
"Dirk, Toulouse?"
The man nodded slowly. I paid," he said. "And if Mr. Valenti wants more, then I'm totally screwed because I don't have any more." It took Kai a moment to understand.
"I don't work for Valenti. I'm here to bring him to justice."
Those words sounded corny coming out of his mouth, but they also felt good. Maybe it was corny. Maybe cops were corny, but he was a cop now. "You aren't a constable," Toulouse said. He still hadn't moved a muscle.
"Marshal of the Reef."
There aren't any reef marshals." Kai was getting tired of hearing that. He walked in, stepping on the door as he did. He pulled the badge from under his shirt, let it drop on his chest.
"See that?"
Toulouse looked at it. "I work with metal for a living, Mr.
North. Marshal North."
He hadn't meant to use his real name. It had just come out. And it, too, felt good. "I work with metal for a living, Marshal North. Anyone could make one of those." Kai pointed his spitter at the man's head.
"Can anyone make one of these?"
Toulouse looked down the barrel. No, they can't. So you're trying to tell me that you're here to help me?"
"That's right."
"By aiming a spitter at my face?" Kai looked at the spitter. Maybe that wasn't the best way to make a first impression. He lowered the weapon to his side. "Marshal North, did you ever think to just knock?" Kai looked at the shattered door.
"In retrospect, that might have worked better."
He looked around. He'd never been in the Emporium before. Multicolored, multi-shaped machines all over the place, in various stages of completion. They looked like the work of a bad child artist rather than functioning machines.
"I need you to tell me about Valenti and his goons," Kai said. "Especially a warrior you met. The name might be Whitall the Hanger."
Hammer, Toulouse said. "Whitall the Hammer."
"What does he look like?"
Toulouse rolled his eyes. "Oh, sure. I tell you all about Valenti and that warrior, so you can go and take on the Flathead gang, fail, and then have them come back here and kill me and my family?" The man was scared but calm. He'd faced violent sentience before, but none like the heretic.
"You're in debt to Valenti," Kai said. "Know what's worse? Being in debt to me. This is your one shot to be rid of the man. Come tomorrow, Valenti won't be around anymore. I will. Make your decision."
Toulouse met Kai's eyes, didn't look away. The guy was unarmed, and barely as big as one of Kai's thighs. Maybe Toulouse wasn't a physically strong man, but he was strong of will. Sometimes, most times, that matters far more. "What do you want to know, Marshal?"
"Tell me their descriptions. Tell me what they said. Tell me how they acted. And—"
A glint of metal caught Kai's eye. A mech, no, a schmeck in the corner. 3 meters tall. Red and white checkerboard paint, trying and failing to give the hodgepodge assembly of parts a uniform feel.
"And tell me about your credit plan,"
Kai said. That surprised Toulouse. "Well, that depends on the price, which depends on the schmeck, which depends on what you want that schmeck to do."
Kai smiled. "What do I want it to do? I want it to break some shit."
Chapter 16. Closed for business. He could have waited until the slab shut down for the day. He could have waited until the wee hours, when Sheka the surprisingly eloquent was preparing the bazaar for the daily influx of bodies. He could have brought backup, or recruited and deputized new muscle. He could have done a lot of things, smart things, tactically sound things, things a newly sworn Marshal of the Reef should do. But that wasn't Kyle North's style. It never would be. He hit the slab at high noon. If anyone had seen his epic bout against Korak the Cutter, they would have instantly remembered how he rode to the octagon on the back of a war elephant as thousands of fans went wild with surprise and delight, as Massara the Observant and Chick McGee broadcast the event to an audience of billions. Kai rode to this fight as well, but this time, standing on the shoulders of the two biggest schmecks Toulouse had to offer. Kai had a foot on each one, Krelmont harnesses wrapped around their metal heads, the reins held in his hands. Metal feet hit heavy and hard against the street's loose slate, dual impacts ringing with the ching-ching, ching-ching of a broken ceramic instrument. On the schmecks, he was so tall he had to duck to get inside the big tent. The crowd saw him enter. How could they not? A huge man standing atop a pair of hodgepodge 3-meter-tall bipedal machines, one painted checkerboard red and white, the other a deep blue. Sentients stopped where they were, stopped and stared. They didn't know what to think. But that was fine. Kai was happy to do their thinking for them. He steered the schmecks toward a booth where a barker stood, staring, holding a megaphone. "Whoa, boys," Kai said. "Whoa." The schmecks stopped. Toulouse had programmed them to his voice. Kai held out his hand toward the megaphone. "Give me that," he said. The dumbfounded barker, still staring, tossed the megaphone up to Kai. Kai thumbed the megaphone up to full volume.
"My name is Marshal North,"
he called out, his voice roaring across the slab.
"Duly appointed lawman, eater of souls, and all-around badass. This market is hereby closed until further notice. You're ordered to vacate the premises."
Hundreds of faces stared up at him.
"That means get the hell out,"
Kai said.
"Now."
A constable pushed through the crowd toward Kai, one of Bat's colleagues. Kai didn't know the man's name, but remembered being hauled in by the man on more than one occasion, using the billy club he held in one hand to good use on Kai's ribs, legs, and skull. "Ain't no such thing as a reef marshal," the man said. "Constables are the law in these parts, Kari. You're so drunk you don't even know your own name. Now get the hell down from there," he waggled his billy club, "before I have to use this on you." Kai wrapped the reins around the megaphone and let it drop. It dangled from the chest of the checkerboard schmeck. Kai then leapt off the machines, flipped in midair, and landed right in front of the constable. It would have been a spectacular move if his bum knee hadn't given out. He stumbled, almost fell. Someone in the crowd laughed. Kai's temper stirred, a rabid animal just waking up from a tranquilizer nap. He stood in front of the constable. "You ain't the law no more," Kai said. The man took a swing with the billy club. A dumb act, but an assertive one, and for that the man won Kai's admiration. He also won Kai's wrath. Kai didn't just block the blow. He drove a short right cross into the man's swinging forearm, breaking it on impact. Before the man could cry out, Kai's fist became a knife edge that he backhanded into the man's temple. The constable dropped like wet laundry. The billy club clattered to the ground. Kai picked it up. He reached down to the constable, stripped him of his belt, put it on himself. He slid the billy club into the belt's metal ring, then walked back to the schmecks and climbed Checker's built-in ladder. His knee throbbed. He should have climbed down the ladder in the first place instead of acting like he was 20 years old and bulletproof. He reeled in the megaphone.
"Anyone else want to tell me to get down?"
Human head shook slowly. Quith antenna drooped. Sclerono eyes looked away. No one seemed sure how to react. The crowd didn't disperse, but they didn't come after him either. Kyle knew why.
"Looks like some of you recognize me as Lash Kari. Those that do, you know what I'm capable of, and that was before I got a badge. Now I can not only whip your ass, I can throw you in jail right after.
It's what you might call a no-win situation for you. Last chance. Disperse.
All eyes were on him. Across the bazaar, Turbik, the negotiator, the Quith leader manager of the Proporshchiks, Fedor and Shevchenko, rubbed his Petipalp hands together.
Fedor, Turbik said, you and your sister get over there and beat that human into submission. I'm sure Valenti will have a nice reward for us when you do.
The heavy G siblings took one long look at Kyle, then at one another, and then they stepped from their stage and strode toward Kai. When they reached him, they walked right past. They walked out of the slab and continued on down Main Street. Most of the other bodyguards, human, Quith, Key, and Sklorno alike, followed them. Kai stared hard at Turbik.
Ah,
said the leader, now quite alone.
Perhaps I should be going now.
The crowd's confusion or resolve, Kai didn't care which, vanished. The area cleared out. Fast. Kai was left alone, standing tall in the slab. A few days ago, in this same place, he'd been looked at like scum, like something less than. Now the emptiness of the big tent told a new story. Respect. He had respect again. Or maybe fear. Either way, a badge was a hell of a thing. This was power. More than the power he'd felt in the octagon. This was the power of one sentient over another. This was something different. This could go to a guy's head, real fast. He wouldn't let that happen. But he wasn't about to stop either. Not anytime soon. Not with the job unfinished. He snapped at the reins. "Yeah, boys! Yeah!" He marched his mounts to the far end of the slab and out of the big tent. Word had already spread to the whole. The sentients thickly ringing the pit watched his approach. 4 fighters, 3 humans and a big key, were in the pit, dressed in makeshift armor and fighting with baseball bats that had spikes driven through them. Spectators and fighters alike stared up at Kai. Atop his red, white, and blue mounts, he was over 5 meters tall, a man in white that radiated violence.
The hole is now closed.
Highside pushed through the crowd, his wiry hair bouncing with each step.
The hell it is, Lash! What's wrong with your head? You know what Valenti will do to you if you try to shut down his action?
"I'll be talking to him soon enough," Kai said. "Get out of town, Highside. Don't come back. You've got 1 hour. After that, if I see you, you're gonna hang." Kai looked down into the pit.
And as for you no-talent, 2-bit, toothless, old lady-beating, crap-gobbling punks in that pit, you either get out and go home, or you come up here and stop me.
Highside snarled. He called down to the pit.
Mr. Valenti's gratitude and a triple bonus for anyone who takes this loudmouth out.
Kai felt that rush, that thrill. He'd given everyone a chance to do this peacefully, but in truth, he'd been itching for a fight. Which, actually, was probably why he'd insulted them so much. The 4 armored fighters started up the pit slope, coming toward him. Maybe it wasn't enough to just chase everyone out of the slab in the hole. Maybe Kai needed to make a bigger statement. Maybe. No, not maybe. Definitely. "Checkers, Old Blue," Kai said. "Go back into the tent. Tear the market down. Tear it all down." Atop 3 meters of hodgepodge mech, Kai drew the billy club. Bad knee? No problem. Head first, he leapt at the fighters. He took a shot to the shoulder as he slammed into them, felt the iron spike dig into his flesh. It was the last blow they landed on him. Mods or no mods, he was a fighter of the highest caliber, a former heavyweight champion of the galaxy. These country bumpkins had no chance. The fighters hadn't been involved in Dynamite's death, probably, but the man's passing churned inside of Kai. He let out his frustration in the form of accurate strikes with the club, dense wood slapping against the flesh showing in the gaps of mismatched armor. He'd spent years in the octagon. His mind had developed an innate ability to track time, to know without knowing exactly how many seconds remained in each round. When all four opponents were lying in motionless heaps of broken bones, Kai knew the entire fight had lasted 17 seconds. He looked around for the next foe, but there was no one to be seen. Everyone had fled. A badge was a hell of a thing. A badge and a billy club and a sentient who knew how to use it? Far more so. From inside the huge slab tent came the sound of things breaking. Kai tore the shirt off of one of his fallen opponents, tied it tight around the bleeding spike hole in his shoulder. A bad wound, but he'd had worse. He strode back inside the big tent. Or rather, he wanted to stride because he felt so confident, so full of the feeling that he was finally doing what he had been destined to do all along, but instead he limped in because of the damn knee that had been destroyed back when he'd been doing what he thought he'd been destined to do. That kind of thing would make a guy's head hurt thinking about it. So he stopped thinking about it. Inside the tent, Checkers and Old Blue were making a delightful mess of the place, smashing stalls and crushing everything they could get their mismatched metal hands on. The few sentients who had hidden in their stalls were ducking and running for the exits. Kai strode to the very center of town, to the symbol of what Break My Back was, what it stood for. He strode to the pillar. Sheka the surprisingly eloquent stood there, as if he might defend this bastion of his authority. The leader trembled, his red and black fur twitching like a coat made of living things. His eyes swirled with black and crimson. He was angry and afraid.
"You are a dead man,"
Sheka said.
"This is Valenti's town."
Kai stared at him. The sound of the Schmecks destroying the slab filled the air. Kai held out his hand toward Sheka, palm up. "Give me paper and a pen." Sheka quickly offered them up. Kai reached to take them, only then noticing that his knuckles were split in several places, that his blood was dripping to splatter against the loose slate. Oh, and it looked like his pinky was broken. It stuck out at a 45-degree angle. He hadn't noticed that. Kai quickly snapped the pinky back into place as best he could, then took the paper. He didn't bother with the pen after all. In his own blood, he scrawled out a note. "The slab is closed. Mercs, thugs, crooks, dealers, pushers, flesh merchants, gangsters, and lowlifes of all kind leave Break My Back for good or face justice." He signed it as well, in blood. Marshall North. He slid the paper onto a nail, covering up the stacked messages below it. "I want all these other notices taken down," Kai said. "Every piece of paper. I want them all down." Sheka shivered, looked at the pillar.
"Valenti will kill me."
"Maybe, but if you don't do what I say, I'll make you wish you were dead. You have 30 seconds. Get to work."
"And when I'm finished, are you going to kick me out of town too?"
Kai thought that over. "No," he said. "You were nice to me. You get to stay. Now do what I say."
"Just like I did for Valenti?"
Kai put his hand on his billy club handle. "Don't test me, Sheka. You are still a piece of shit working for a bigger piece of shit, which means my gratitude has limits. You want to stay and break my back, or do you want to try your chances out in the open air?" Sheka shivered again. His red and black fur stood on end. He turned to the pillar, started ripping down notices. Kai looked around the slab, or what had been the slab. Checkers and Old Blue had finished their work. Nothing left standing other than the tent itself. Wreckage. From that wreckage, the sentients who mattered, the ones who didn't make a living preying on others, would build a new reality. A reality that Marshal Kyle North would protect. Law, real law, had finally come to break my back. That was episode number 9 of The Reef. Things in Break My Back are getting kooky. The brace is burned to the ground. The slab is now trashed. Kai is a marshal. The Schmecks are cool. But what is Omeg Valenti going to do about all of this carnage? This insult to his rule of the city. And have we heard the last of Gabriel? I don't think so. Snag the next episode to find out what happens next. Before this episode, I told you I would tell you how to get The Rookie for free. That is book 1 of the Galactic Football League series. Yes, you can get it for free. It's so simple. Go to scottsigler.com/therookie. That is TheRookie. You can get it for free as a book for Kindle. You can get it as an ebook, or you can get it as a serialized podcast, just like the one you're listening to right here. That is scottsigler.com/therookie. That counts for iBooks too, by the way, or Apple Books, whatever the hell they call it now. So go get it. Check it out. The series currently has 5 novels and 5 novellas. There's one more novella coming at the time I'm dropping this episode. There's one more novella due in 2020, and overall 3 more novels. That's right. The GFL series will be a total of 8 novels. The next one, The Gangster, will be out in Q1 of 2020. You can still pre-order that limited edition signed numbered hardcover at scottsigler.com/thegangster. That's all one word, The Gangster. That is it for this week. Join us next week for more story. And until then, I will talk to you all real soon.
You have been listening to The Reef, a Galactic Football League novella. Written by Scott Sigler and Matt Wallace. Narrated by Scott Sigler. Audiobook directed by AB Kovacs and engineered by Steve Riekeberg. Copyright 2019 by Empty Set Entertainment. All rights reserved. Theme music is by the band Amps and Volts.